He bought her like cattle. No questions, no name, just a coin purse slammed on a saloon bar. Days later, she stood behind a line of rifles, staring down the man who once owned her. Her voice didn't tremble when she said, "I was never yours." But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The morning he came for her, the sky hung low and the wind carried a taste of metal, like the world knew something foul was about to happen and held its breath. She was scrubbing a blood-crusted handkerchief in a cracked basin behind the saloon, knuckles raw, apron stiff with ash and whiskey. The soap was near gone, but she kept rubbing, as if friction might erase more than just stains, might scrub away the past, the eyes, the whispers. The nickname the barkeep gave her still rang in her ears. Mouse. He said it soft, with a smirk, like it suited her. Quiet, gray, always near the floorboards. She hadn't spoken a full sentence in months. Not since the fever took her mother and the preacher's wife dumped her at the saloon doorstep like forgotten laundry. In Dust Creek, silence was safer. Safer than explaining why she flinched at raised voices. Safer than admitting she sometimes forgot her own name. It had once been Mary Beth, she thought. Or Anna Lee. She wasn't sure anymore. Then Garrett Flint stepped down from his horse, boots hitting the dirt with a heavy finality that made dogs bristle and card games freeze mid-hand. The man had a stillness to him that was louder than shouting. He walked past the horses, past the drunk curled under the porch, past the lace-curtained windows of the brothel upstairs. His coat was dusted with road and dried blood at the cuffs. No badge, no star. But everyone moved like he carried both. He didn't ask for a drink, didn't smile, just pointed one gloved hand toward the back where she was crouched, wringing the handkerchief dry with trembling wrists. "That one," he said. "That one?" The saloon keeper blinked. "You mean the mute?" Flint's answer was a coin purse, tossed on the bar like a judgment. Heavy, metallic, final. No one called her by name. No one asked if she wanted to go. No one thought she might scream, because they knew she wouldn't. She just stood, wooden, water dripping from her fingertips onto the floorboards. When he took her arm, not roughly, but with a grip that left no room for refusal, she didn't resist. What would have been the point? They left through the swinging doors like it was any other business transaction. A man and his purchase, a body and its buyer. The silence that followed was louder than a funeral bell. Not one of them met her eyes. Not one of them called her back. And so she went. Barefoot. Blank. Bought. The ranch sat like a scar on the hillside. Burnt trees ringed it like sentinels, their limbs skeletal against the dull sky. The house itself was weather-beaten and sun-bleached, its shutters warped, the porch sagging in the middle like a mouth caught mid-sob. It was the kind of place that had once belonged to someone hopeful, a family maybe, with dreams of harvests and long summers, but now it bore the shape of a man who wanted to be alone with his ghosts. And now her. The inside smelled of old leather, gun oil, and something else, something rot-soft and bitter, like meat gone bad behind the walls. The rooms were bare, save for a cot, a table, and a pair of chairs that never seemed to be in the same place twice. There was no mirror, no clock. Time didn't pass here. It crouched. He gave her no instructions, no words, just watched. In the mornings, she cooked grits and overboiled coffee, placing the bowl where he always sat. Never at the head of the table, but to the left, where his back could face the wall. He ate slowly, deliberately, chewing like each bite was a calculation. When she glanced up from the hearth, his eyes would already be on her, unblinking. measuring. Not with desire, but with something colder. Ownership. As if he were waiting for her to shift, speak, flee, just to see what she'd do. She did none of those things. Instead, she folded into silence, shrinking smaller each day, her spine coiling inward. Her voice, when it came at last, rasped from disuse. "Why me?" It wasn't even a plea, just a breath, too tired to carry emotion. He didn't answer, just reached into his coat and handed her a book so worn the spine hung by threads. Leaves of Grass. She opened it to a page that had been dog-eared so often the corner was almost gone. The words blurred before her, ink, not meaning. Then came the night, the knock at the door, the low grunt, the dragging sounds across the floorboards. She peeked from the kitchen and saw a man crumpled on the ground, blood matting his hair. Garrett stood over him, eyes lit with something close to joy. He looked at her then, not with affection, not even cruelty, but certainty. She wasn't his woman. She was his insurance. Later, on hands and knees, scrubbing the red from the floor with vinegar and rage, she paused and looked at her own reflection in the pail. Hollowed eyes, lips pressed tight, skin smudged with someone else's violence. She didn't cry. She hated him. But worse, she hated her. The version of herself that had survived so long by shrinking. The girl who hadn't run when she still could. And in that reflection, something shifted. A fracture. A whisper. Not yet. But soon. The morning he left, she didn't flinch when the door slammed. Didn't peer through the warped window to watch his outline vanish into the pines. She simply stood there, motionless, as his boots faded down the trail and the silence closed around her like a seal. Her fingers trembled only once, and not from fear, but from something deeper, older, rising from a place she thought had long gone to ash. For months, she had moved like smoke through that cabin, filling cracks, slipping past notice, avoiding the edges of knives and the weight of his gaze. But now, for the first time, the air was hers. And it felt different. Not safe, no, but hollow in a way that begged to be filled. She moved quickly, methodically, not like a woman running, but like one waking. The saddle was stiff, the horse wary beneath her, sensing something unspoken in her hands. She didn't speak to it. Didn't speak at all. The road ahead was narrow and steep, and every mile felt like crossing back into herself. She passed the creek where he once bathed, the scorched sycamores that rattled in the wind like bones. Each marker she left behind was a tether cut. When she reached town, heads turned. Children stared. One woman stepped aside like she might be diseased. No one recognized her. Not like this. Clean-faced, straight-backed, hair braided down her spine like a rope she'd climbed out of some dark pit. She walked into the sheriff's office without knocking, boots echoing like a challenge. He looked up with weary eyes, hands still hovering near his holster. He saw her, hesitated. Recognition flickered, but it wasn't enough. "I need to talk to you," she said. The words cracked like dry timber, her voice foreign even to herself. He narrowed his eyes. "Do I know you?" She met his gaze. "Garrett Flint took me. I know where he goes, where he buries what he doesn't want found." The sheriff didn't speak for a long time. He just stared, measuring the weight of truth in her voice, the fire stitched into every scar she bore. Then he leaned back and said one word. "Talk." And she did. Not all at once, but enough. Enough to draw blood without a bullet. Names, places, times. The cold river bend where he tossed the deputy's badge. The cave up on Ridge Bluff where the girl had screamed once. The tree behind the cabin where bones poked from the earth like fingers begging skyward. When dusk came, rifles were loaded, horses saddled. Dust rose behind lawmen like smoke behind a fuse. She stood among them, not apart, no longer a ghost. And when he returned, whistling like a man with nothing to lose, she stood tall behind the rifles, her dress still stiff with old blood. Her chin lifted. He blinked, smirked. "You think this makes you free?" She stepped forward into the lengthening light, into the space he no longer owned. "I was never yours," she said. And for the first time, it was true. The courthouse in Colton Ridge was a squat, red stone building that sat like a stubborn truth at the end of Main Street. On the morning of the trial, the air was already thick with the kind of heat that drew out old ghosts and made tempers thin. Folks gathered early, on porches, on barrels, against hitching posts, speaking low and looking toward the doors like they expected something biblical. Inside, it was standing room only. Women packed the benches shoulder to shoulder, their bonnets clutched in hands gone white at the knuckles. Many had ridden for hours, some with children on their laps, some with nothing but a memory and a name. Each one had come for the same reason, not just to see justice, but to see her. She walked in without a chaperone. No lawyer at her side, no friend gripping her hand, just herself, back straight, hair pinned, a pale blue shawl folded neatly over her shoulders. No jewelry, no powder. Her face was bare and unflinching. She took the stand without hesitation. When she spoke, the room seemed to still into a held breath. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried, clear, precise, every word measured like grain poured into a scale. She gave no embellishment, no flourish, just facts, dates, scars, places, the inside of his cabin, the sound his boots made on the floorboards, the way he smiled before he hurt people. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. And perhaps that's why the silence afterward was so complete. When the judge delivered the sentence, 20 years, hard labor, there were no shouts, just a hush, like the moment after a thunderclap. She bowed her head, not in gratitude, but in relief, like someone who'd set something heavy down at last. Outside, the crowd spilled into the sun. Someone touched her arm, asked gently, "Miss, what's your name?" She paused. The answer came soft but steady. "Evelyn." It was the first time she'd said it aloud, not the name of a ghost or a girl erased by silence. A name chosen, a name earned. That spring, the bakery took her on. Mornings smelled of yeast and cinnamon. She learned to knead dough like breath into new life. Children pressed their noses to the window for her jam pies. Women lingered by the counter, asking after recipes and remedies alike. Her laughter came slow at first, but it stayed. And when the new school teacher, a man with ink-stained fingers and eyes full of gentleness, left. Leaves of grass on her porch wrapped in twine, she didn't flinch. She opened it, read the note, and smiled. Not because she needed rescuing, but because she finally saw the world through her own name. Evelyn, not property, not prisoner, but present and unforgotten.